surprise shone light from distant northern skies. At that point, I realized I don't know where it comes from, but I know it's okay. This is all an illusion, and I'm willing to play.
Welcome to the Quantum Guide Show, interviews with awakened masters as they share their quantum work with you. The Quantum Guide Show is produced by Karen Holton, creator of the 9 Steps to Quantum Health Transformation, a free 9-step online course to give you the tips and resources you need to thrive. Karen lost and continues to keep off 178 pounds of surplus body weight as she made her dreams come true. Whether you are awakening to the ascension process or simply want a wiser, more efficient lifestyle, this program is for you. No strings attached. The Quantum Guide Show is brought to you in part by Zendome's Orgonite, Karen's unique brand of orgone generators, ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. Find out how orgone generators work and what they can do for you. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out Karen's current selection, only available from her website, KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com, and on Facebook, facebook.com/Quantum Health Transformation. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to episode 42 of the Quantum Guide Show. I am very excited to introduce you to our guest today. Dan Willis is one of the top secret military witnesses that testified at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. in 2001, in front of the major mainstream media of the world. This world disclosure event was prompted by those within our government with legal constitutional authority who were being illegally denied access. This event was held to ask for a congressional hearing to bring forth the witness scientists within the unacknowledged special access projects in order to release the advanced technologies derived from reverse engineering extraterrestrial technologies that had been hidden for over 70 years. It was hoped that we could stop further damage to Earth, as well as acknowledge the extraterrestrial presence on our planet. Instead, the message was sanitized from the public view by controlled mainstream media. From his personal firsthand experiences and from looking into the historical indicators that have been purposely omitted from our education system, Dan found that there was an infiltration of unwarranted influences operating behind the secrecy. This was established for our national security systems used to control the public's perception that forms our agreed upon reality. This is done in order to hide their illegal operations and why they fear disclosing the truth about the extraterrestrial reality. An ex-radio broadcast engineer and ABC newsman, Dan has taken a keen interest in how the mainstream media has withheld disclosure of the full message to the public, a message based on the hundreds of credible military and intelligence witness testimonies. Check out Dan's article on his website, which reflects on this question: who controls the agreed upon reality through the mainstream media? And why do they fear disclosing the truth about the extraterrestrial reality? The answer to this question, of course, you must ultimately decide for yourself. Welcome, Dan. How are you doing?
Great to join you, Karen.
Thanks so much. So I thought I was going to ask you first, do you have any snow?
What was that?
Do you have any snow? What's your weather like where you are?
Oh, no, no, not at all.
No. Okay.
I
Awesome.
live off the grid in the mountains, in a rural area on top of a mountain peak. Yeah, just enjoy nature out here.
Oh, it sounds beautiful. Yeah, we have snow, not yet, but very soon, very, very soon. So I just thought I'd just check because all my guests are from different places. I like to know what's going on in the world for weather. But let's start out by, could you tell us a little bit about your awakening process? So what got you started in all this and what led to your participation in the disclosure of 2001?
Well, when I was in the Navy, I had a high-level top secret security clearance and worked at the busiest communication facility on the planet for the naval communications in San Francisco. And I received reports from ships reporting extraterrestrial craft coming out of the ocean. And, this, I was like 20 years old. This was 1969, the long time ago. And so it seeded my questioning, why. I thought I'd looked at the San Francisco Chronicle the next day to see, if there's something talking about this 70-foot glowing reddish orange saucer coming out of off port bow of the ship off near Alaska that was going over 7,000 miles per hour. Obviously, it was nothing that I knew of technology that we had, that at least from our indoctrination of what we know of technology. And so, for many decades, I've researched, and then I was asked to be one of 20 witnesses back here 20 years ago. May 9th, 2001, the National Press Club, in front of the mainstream media of the world. My testimony was minor compared to the other witness testimonies that were talking about, each one of us stated we're willing to testify under oath before a congressional hearing, which we were seeking. Bases on the other side of the moon, nukes being shut down. We've already had faster than light craft that can go back in the 1950s. We had this. We have 0-point energy. We don't need nuclear, oil, and coal. We had that suppressed for 70 years. Presidents, CIA directors, heads of intelligence are all being denied access to these illegal projects. In fact, that's what brought this event about. Was that in 1997, the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Vice Admiral Thomas Wilson, was shown a NRO document, National Reconnaissance Office, that was showing these unacknowledged special access programs. And he, in his constitutional authority, should have had access, being the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was denied access. And he told Dr. Greer, if you can get your people willing to testify under oath, you have my permission, go before the mainstream media of the world, which we did in 2001. This is a long string of events. Dr. Greer was collecting witnesses all the way back in 1993 when he met with the CIA director, James Woolsey. Clinton wanted to find out about the UFO subject, and he had his CIA director look into it. And so he couldn't get access through his intelligence and military channels. So he brought a civilian in, Dr. Stephen Greer, who's a head of the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And he brought a huge stack of papers showing it, the reality of this thing. And he says, the CIA director says, I know the subject's real, and trying to figure out why the hell I can't gain access to it. And this goes, if you look, I've been researching for the last 20 years, finding out what happened, what brought about this event. Why did the mainstream media completely sanitize these testimonies so that the public didn't know? And it turns out that, Dr. Greer started collecting witnesses, not just a dozen witnesses, hundreds of witnesses. We were 20 that were backed by over 500 military intelligence witnesses. The origin of all of this happens because it's it keeps its own best secrecy because the real truth sounds so science fiction like and so bizarre that people will have a hard time wrapping their mind around that such a thing is real. But what happened was, there is such a thing called a prime directive. Although we've heard about that in Star Trek, the Office of Naval Intelligence actually seeded that into the public, along with the concepts of warp drive and teleportation, all these concepts. Because what happened was there was a reptilian race that, as Professor Herman Oberst said, we had help from people from other worlds. The people from other worlds were these reptilian beings that they assisted the Nazi SS in their secret space program back in the early 1930s. This gave them a huge technological advantage. 20 years, they had anti-gravity in 1934, where the United States did not have it until 20 years later in 1954. And so this is how Admiral Byrd in Operation High Jump was completely defeated when they tried to take out the Nazi base in Antarctica with their anti-gravity craft with directed energy weapons, completely wiped out their military armada. And so what happened was this eventually led to a surrender agreement during President Eisenhower's administration back in February 11th, 1955, when an agreement and surrender had to be made. And this, there's more events that preceded this during the Eisenhower administration, such as the first contact meeting in February 1954, where Eisenhower had a Nordic contact with these beings from the Galactic Federation that wanted to help us with our spirituality. They wanted us to shut down our nuclear weapons because of what it does. What happened was MJ-12 went behind his back and signed the agreement with the group that they were warning about, which was from the Orion group, which was the Greys, because Eisenhower wanted to have public television and radio disclosure in May of 1954, but they circumvented him. And so they signed the agreement allowing facilities on Earth and allowing them to abduct people of Earth for their program, and it had to be secret. And the Vatican is tied in with all this, in Majestic 12 documents that kind of reveal this. And so essentially Eisenhower basically, as General Stephen Lovkin, one of our witnesses, said that, he basically got sold out and that the whole issue is going into control of the corporations. The Fourth Reich had effectively infiltrated into the United States. We thought we won the war. We won the war with Germany, but the Nazis fully had a plan to infiltrate into the United States and create what's called a matrix of perception. They call it Weltanschauungskrieg, worldview warfare. They wanted to control our mainstream media, control our education, control, go into the pharmaceutical corporations. All of this happened. Operation Mockingbird, Rockefeller Foundation rewrote the history of World War II and everything. And so what happened was Eisenhower tried to look into, they moved all their operations of reverse engineering at Wright-Patterson in Ohio over to Area 51 and S4 to keep it super secret. See, the Galactic Federation originally wanted to have disclosure and help us with our spirituality, whereas the other group wanted to have secrecy. And so that's why the whole thing, that answered the question, why is it kept secret? Is because of this secrecy arrangement that they had. And so what's happening is he tried to look into what was going on in Area 51, and he was denied access, President Eisenhower. And so he was able to get a report from 2 CIA agents that came forth and said they had a number of craft that they were reverse engineering, and there was extraterrestrials there. In 1993, I actually met outside Area 51, where the first time Bob Lazar ever went public to a small group of researchers out there. And his testimony has been 100% consistent through the years, and no recordings were loud whatsoever, but I had my camera going on my lap. I was on the front row, and I recorded the full 2 hours of him being hit with nonstop questions. And you can view it at thewebmatrix.net and go to the 1993 timeline. You can see the YouTube video if you want to see that. And so every president, CIA director, head of intelligence, ever since Eisenhower, Kennedy, 10 days before he put a request into the CIA to have the UFO files released, Allen Dulles, infamous for the Nazi infiltration, he set up a assassination directive, which was carried out on President Kennedy. President Carter had a UFO experience. He actually had a sighting that he reported, and he made it his campaign promise that he was going to release the UFO files. One of the witnesses over here, Daniel Sheehan, the attorney, witnessed that the information that George H.W. Bush, the CIA director, denied the sitting president access to that information. So every president, CIA director, everybody has looked into it, has been denied access, going all the way back to Eisenhower. So that's kind of a long story short, but that's what brought about the 2001 National Press Club event.
Yes, very, very interesting. And I'm really glad you laid that out for the viewers who perhaps have not yet done all the research and gone down the rabbit holes. And of course, I recommend people visit your website. It's amazing. So much information, everything you ever wanted to know. But I have a clarifying question, because this is something that I'm not really clear on, because the beings that I deal with are very far away. They're not involved with our solar system. They haven't been coming to Earth, nothing like that. And so what I wanted to know, is there or is there not a prime directive that says that they're not allowed to interfere with our species or humanity until we're ready? And if that is the case, how were the reptilians and the other nefarious beings that you talked about, how were they able to get around that?
Well, they violated it. They created a that's a great question. I've been it inspired a number of people, this event, although the mainstream media completely sanitized it. You're doing what's called a limited hangout, where it made it sound like we wanted to have a congressional hearing on just simply the reality of UFOs, where all the explosive testimonies were completely sanitized from, CNN, CBS, ABC, all of them. Mm-hmm. Being an ex-ABC newsman, I kind of took note of, how all the journalists and things were purposely basically following CNN's follow on the whole thing. What happened was, let's see, on the sorry, what was the question once again?
That's okay. I think you answered yes, the prime directive is real. I also believe that that's a real thing.
Yeah, thanks for triggering my memory. And there's so many details to this.
That's okay. It's all good.
Yeah, it inspired a number
those
of
races,
people.
They just disobeyed it and went ahead and did secret stuff, right?
Yeah, where I was going with it, it inspired a number of people, such as a hacker in the UK, Gary McKinnon, who discovered the Navy's secret space program called Solar Warden. Also inspired a teaching professor, Dr. Michael Salla, who's been doing incredible work at exopolitics.org. He just recently has been getting information from some sources, contactees that he's having. One of them was on the prime directive, And it's interesting that Admiral Leslie Stevens, who was in the Office of Naval Intelligence, working alongside Admiral Rick Obota, was working with 29 Navy spies at the Naval Air Station in San Diego with William Tompkins, who was the information disseminator. We were trying to figure out we were trying to catch up. They were looking at the some of it was in hieroglyphics and stuff, the reptilians that were giving the Nazis to advance their secret space program. And so they were disseminating this to different aerospace and universities and stuff to try to figure it out and catch up. But Admiral Leslie Stevens, Office of Naval Intelligence, his son, Leslie Stevens Jr., was the creator of the Outer Limits series on television.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave the script to Gene Roddenberry for Star Trek. And so what it is, the Galactic Federation was working in order to create balance. In other words, since the Prime Directive was thrown off by what the Prime Directive basically says is that a more advanced race cannot intervene or interfere with an evolving race that has not reached a certain level of maturity. And so by the Draco Federation basically coming in and assisting the Nazi SS to have that advanced technology, which had repercussions throughout the whole timeline that we're currently at. It gave basically the Prime Directive, it gave absolute moral responsibility for the Galactic Federation to come in with their Nordic-looking beings that came in and started working with the U.S. Navy all the way back at least till the early 1940s, as William Tompkins, which is a well-documented U.S. Navy witness that did a lot of research into that, then they were giving them information. And by the 1980s, they were able to launch the Solar Warden program. We have several U.S. Navy, as Gary McKinnon discovered, they wanted to put him away for 70 years in prison for discovering the U.S. Navy Solar Warden program. The technology that the Galactic Federation has goes even more science fiction like, where they actually are recruiting people for a 20-year tour of duty, which they put them on a separate timeline. And at the end of the tour of duty, they age reverse and time reverse them back to the point of enlistment, usually around age 17 or so, and wipe their memory, and they don't have any recall of it. But as 20 years passes on this timeline, like say they started the program in the 1980s, so 20 years go by. In the year 2000, I call them the 21st century witnesses. I'm like an old 20th century witness. But the first Michael Ralph was one of the first ones. You had Randy Kramer, you've got Tony Rodriguez, you have all these different people coming out. Michael Ralph, let's see, can't remember all of the names, but okay, there's a number of them that having their total memory recall of their service in the U.S. Navy secret space program called Solar Warden. So we have quite an interesting situation happening right now.
We sure do.
They upset the timeline, the Draco, by assisting the Nazis, which has repercussions all the way to today, what's going on. We're under, if you haven't noticed, we're under attack, so to speak. And using the mainstream media, which is what I kind of focused on, looking at the history of it, how, they started with the Nazis basically infiltrated Alan Dulles in 1950 started Operation Mockingbird, where they had 400 journalists. 1954, Nazi SS Prince Bernhard started the Bilderberg meetings, which they, along with Council of Foreign Relations and Trilateral, they control the 6 corporations which control everything that we see and hear, all the, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, across the whole spectrum. They centrally provide the script that moves toward the hidden agenda that they're moving. It's not so hidden anymore. More and more glitches are showing in this reality. But what's interesting is every year the CIA, since 1983, when there was 50 media companies, to today, they've consolidated their control down to only 6 corporations. There was 50 back then. And every single year they have this meeting up in Sun Valley, Idaho, top secret meetings with, back then it was only big media. Today we have big media and big tech. And this last July, the CIA director that Biden assigned, which is very China friendly, along with Bill Gates, and what's he doing in this meeting, along with all of the big media and big tech players, have a top secret meeting to coordinate their agenda. So we know the Nazis had a philosophy of using, and they had used slave labor in Antarctica. They had landed on the moon, started a base in 1942, and they moved on to Mars. So they're having these human rights abuse using slave labor all this time. And some of their ideologies is eugenics, reducing the population to have a small slave force. And so, they've been, using different methods, fluoride in our water, GMOs and chemtrails, and all these different things, and even can't say that word, using it as bioweapons in order to reduce the population, and only through their control of the mainstream media, which, people have a hard time comprehending that all these different media sources are all centrally controlled for an agenda that's being used against the public. And it was it's incredible, because when you're a child, your parents used to watch the evening news, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you and I are in a generation, probably Walter Cronkite.
Yep.
Right. And your parents had no reason whatsoever to question that the validity. You just naturally assume there's hundreds of journalists fact checking, the information. And if anything is inaccurate, people would be calling it out. But today we have organizations like Project Veritas, where you have CNN, ABC, Pfizer, all these different behind the scenes information that's coming out, where they're saying, I couldn't reveal this because they'd fire me. It goes against the narrative. And so you naturally, as a child, just take that assumption that the news media is giving you an informative, correct information, that you can't even comprehend that. But that is not the case. And unfortunately, there's a large mass of people that are born into this reality that have no idea of this history and are being hoodwinked, deceived, bamboozled.
Absolutely. What I find from my perspective living today is it's as though the Nazi culture never went away. It just kind of got hidden for a while, and now it's back with a vengeance. I see so many similarities. But getting back to reality, I think really, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think also what you're saying is that when the media controls perception, Those people believe it's true and then act upon it as though it is real. And so that's how they're able to control reality. And until we're ready to check out some of the alternative media, although now it's hitting the mainstream, it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. But until people are willing to do that, they never realize, not even the tip of the iceberg. And then the other issue is it's too frightening. It's too frightening to see it all unfold in what it really is, and to see all the
it
connections.
upsets the comfort zone. Absolutely.
And it's really, and that's why I think a lot of people, they don't want, in fact, more and more, they're just digging in their heels, keeping their head down. Well, if we just do as we told, if we just do as we're told, we're going to be okay. Our government's going to look after us. And then the other thing that I want to mention is from my own research, we know that the left and the right have been constructed, and they're basically two wings of the same bird, but also there's been an alternative construct to represent the people who feel they're not represented by the left or the right. So we're at a point now where, wow, it's a lot of information. People are extremely stressed. And I would agree with you, our reality is very, not only hugely controlled, but when I go out and become authentic within this fake reality, I'm persecuted. I don't feel safe. It's a very interesting phenomenon, very, very interesting. But I think I would totally agree with you that our complete perceptual arena, until we wake up and step out of that and step into other realities, which are actually a lot more interesting and more satisfying, this is how it's going to go. So we've talked about the extraterrestrial reality. Yes, extraterrestrials are real. ET is real. They're not all bad and they're not all good. There are some that do not have our best interests at heart. They've made shady secret dealings. And I actually, from the research I've done, and also I think it's also on your website, we can go back in history and see the strings of this going way back, like before the flood, back to the days of the Assyrians and the Babylonians. The ties have been nonstop through all of this and getting smarter and getting better at controlling us. But ultimately, I think, and you can disagree with me, I think that things are going to get to the point where enough people are going to wake up that we're going to have to go, okay, now what do we do? And do you have anything to say about that, Dan? What do you feel is the upcoming end game?
Well, yeah, I've been, my website is not a professional site, just my basically online notes that I just want to share with other people. But in noticing, the previous administration, they set up a number of executive orders. Hundreds of thousands of sealed indictments were made. Dr. Michael Salla has been getting intel that from his sources that the Galactic Federation has liberated the moon, Mars, and Sirius. My friend Tony Rodriguez got stuck up there. That considering now they're not here to save us, they meant to make that clear. They're not here to save us, but they're here to assist us. And they've been assisting the US Navy with their program, obviously. So what we have is a situation on Earth that's pretty apparent. When you watch the evening news, it's pretty horrific. Oh, what's happening, one thing after another. It looks pretty gloomy if you look at the news and what's going on and the way the deep state is progressing forward on its New World Order plan, which is, reducing the population to have a small slave force that's all controlled. But to me, I have a lot of positive, how do you say, I have an optimistic view because I feel that there is this global awakening. There is more people catching on to this whole thing that's going on, and that there was from my research I've done I've interviewed a number of secret space program witnesses, and there's indications that after President Eisenhower lost control, that he set up a plan that would protect our constitutional republic if there was ever a threat in the future, because he knew, as he tried to warn us that beware of the misplaced powers and unwarranted influences within the industrial military complex, and only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can protect our future liberties and freedoms. I'm paraphrasing his warning to the public when he left office, because he couldn't, you couldn't say exactly what was going on, but he tried to warn the public that only an alert. You have to be alert and knowledgeable. You have to research. You can't just look at the mainstream media. You got to take in all sources. So look at alternative media and the mainstream media to get an idea, and then all of a sudden everything starts to fall right into place. Because if you only watch CNN, MSNBC, you're not going to get what's going on at all. And so, considering we've got these white hats behind the scenes that back in 2017, we can't even talk about it because you get censored. They try to give us information on the back channels of the internet about these military operations of taking down this deep state. And then they went quiet in 2019 or 2020. Anyway, they did it for 3 years, these posts, and I followed all 3 years of it. And it's all been consistent. So, and I can see why the mainstream media called it a deranged, Nazi, violent, baseless conspiracy cult. They try to discredit it. You have to look at what the mainstream media attacks and what they support, to get an idea of where they're going with everything. So I believe that there is good people in our military intelligence, that they have the goods on all these people, through Admiral Mike Rogers with control of the NSA. You have the Kraken, which tracks all the illegal money transfers that are going everywhere. And so they've got the goods on all these people, and along with the hundreds of thousands of sealed indictments, and you still have John Durham waiting for his report. I have a feeling that we're going to keep on going until it looks like this near-death experience of this horror movie that was playing out, and then wham, there's going to be like a sting operation of historical proportions that's not only going to take down all these corrupt elements that are in the United States, but throughout the whole planet, talking about all the human rights abuse the Chinese Communist Party is doing, everything. And so at that point, it's going to be a great celebration of all humanity on planet Earth being liberated from these dark forces that have been manipulating our perceptions and controlling. And I had to go to combat action in Vietnam on the rivers of Vietnam because of the false flag of the Gulf of Tonkin. All the poor guys that had to go to the Middle Eastern wars because of the false flag of the 9/11 event, which, by the way, we disclosed. Werner von Braun's deathbed testimony said there's going to be the Soviets, and then there's going to be, they had all these false flags planned out in order to move forward on a new world order. This was May of 2001. In September of 2001, you know what happened? We disclosed this, that there's going to be a terrorist event. And then after that, there's going to be third world countries. And then we have Iraq and North Korea, right? And then there's going to be an asteroid event, and they have the ability to fake a asteroid situation, with the final card being a hoaxed alien invasion. But I kind of agree with Dr. Michael Sell that it could be a spin on that and be an alien salvation where it looks like they're coming in to help us, but actually it's a deception. But I think all this is going to, my personal opinion is that all this is going to be shut down before any further false flags go forward. And there's going to be this massive sting operation to take down these people because they know who they are. They know where they are. They kind of know their playbook, what they're going to be doing next. And so that's my hope. It can either go very, very good, or it could go very, very bad. And I'm putting my vision and my energy toward it going very, very good.
Actually, in my heart of hearts, I agree with you 100%. Now, just for the viewers, I just want to see if I understand you correctly, that basically the powers that be are suppressing the information about ET and their technologies strictly from a perspective of they're stuck in the mindset of money and profit and power. Would you agree with that? And do you have anything you'd like to add to that for their motives?
Well, Mayor Rothschild said, give me control of a nation's money and I care not who makes its laws. And it appears that people are being bought out. People, like, say, for example, doctors that don't go along with the protocol that has been killing a lot of people. If they don't go along with that protocol, then they will lose their doctor's license. And so when your livelihood, like, look at all the people in the military, you're going to get a dishonorable discharge if you don't get the thing. And all the people in their different workplaces, if you don't get the thing, you're going to lose your job.
And no EI if you get fired.
Yeah.
It's very.
And so if you're dependent upon finances, if you're depending upon money for survival, people can be manipulated or bribed with lots of money. Look at Hunter's laptop, lots of, and they also, I had 10 years experience after, we had the scientists willing to come forth to prove we have 0-point energy before a congressional hearing. After the Bush administration denied, I volunteered for 10 years. I met with scientists and inventors because of my technical background, vetting these over unity technologies. And people, the scientists, because of the Invention Secrecy Act they set up back in 1951, thousands of solutions in medical, anti-gravity, free energy, you name it. All these incredible solutions have been suppressed where national security orders says your invention has been deemed to be a detriment to the national security of the United States, therefore you cannot share it with anyone. And people have been suicided, murdered. I've experienced that in my 10-year, trying to bring a solution out. But, the technologies that they have in the secret space program are like so far beyond anything you've seen in science fiction, that once these technologies were released, they back in 1956, Valiant Thor met with Eisenhower. They planned to help end sickness and disease and aging. The average lifespan is about 78 years old on this planet. On other planets, they go hundreds, even thousands of years. Why do we have such, by the time you finally catch on what's going on, you expire in this body. So
yeah, and it's interesting, they're trying to get rid of all the old people right now too, because we're the ones that remember and know about the stories from our uncles and our grandparents about what really went on, from their perspective, World War II, all of that. So all of that, and all history and everything that we experience, if you get rid of all of that, well, the millennials, they don't know anything about any of that. They're much easier to control.
So true.
So
they want to get rid of it. They want to erase history.
Yeah, they want to erase history, and anyway, it's beyond comprehension. So I'm trying not to buy too much into it because I do have faith. And one thing we didn't have time to talk about, but I'd love to have you back, is spirituality. So a lot of people, they're going to their churches. I personally believe all the churches are in cahoots with each other, from the papacy and from Rome, and they've been infiltrated. And I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying that they don't have the information, or they're not willing to share accurate information. So people are actually spiritually starving, even though they're still in their religion. So like a lot of churches are telling people to go out and get that medical procedure. And I can't believe that's happening. And so what happens is, I guess what I'm trying to say is, we've been trained to go to external experts, whether it's religion, whether it's medicine, whether it's finance, it doesn't matter. And all these external experts have been trained in a way to not have our best interests at heart. So spirituality to me is quite a different thing than being religious. And people need to wake up and find an internal source, not that I'm not trying to preach here, but an internal source of power where they wake up and they become spiritual. Because I believe we are incredibly powerful beings. There's a reason why ET believes that we can do this, and that it is indeed our job to do this, to wake up and find an alternative way of living that's love-based, that's harmony. And that certainly, in my opinion, has to happen before we're sitting down at the table with ET. Because otherwise, what's going to happen? They're just going to spread those that are controlling our shared reality, not just the media, but the whole project. It's just going to spread that infection onto other planets, into other solar systems, into other galaxies. Well, I have a firm belief that our intergalactic and inter-solar system beings, they want way better than that for us. They want us to take our power, wake up, and change things for ourselves, because we can do that. And we don't need to be babied. Anyway, I'm trying not to ramble. We're quickly running out of time, but I'd like to turn it back over to you, Dan, to just spend a few minutes. What advice do you have for people during these critical times? Where's the best place to find you and to find the accurate information? Because that's the tough part, right? There's so much information on alternative media, and a lot of that's been put into place to divert us off the right path as well. So what do you have to say about all that? Sorry, kind of rambling on here.
Well, I totally agree. Yeah, the timeline's been upset, and it's in the process of being corrected. And you're correct. It's affecting. It has repercussions across the galaxy. My online notes to share, it was a media company out of Hollywood wanted me to write an article on who controls the agreed upon reality through the mainstream media in regards to the UFO issue. And I started taking notes chronologically and putting in all these witnesses and documents and things that, if you put it all together in a large picture, it kind of paints the larger picture of what's going on. It's at www.thewebmatrix.net, not .com, but .net. And it goes a little bit into the history of how they basically infiltrated our pharmaceutical corporations. And my great-grandfather was the president of Homeopathic Medical Society. He was going up against Rockefeller. I.G. Farben was the one that brought Hitler into power. And then they took out all the natural medicine, and they started, with these pharmaceuticals, and they took over the education. And basically it was a Nazi takeover of our whole medical system. And so that's what we have today.
And what a mess it is. But the good news is, I also agree. I think things might get a little bit more intense, but then they're going to get better. And I have complete faith in humanity. I have faith in the whole spiritual realm. I have faith in our ET brothers and sisters. I don't think they're that different than us. I think that the ones that have been carrying on in secrecy, I don't think that's going to get tolerated as well. I don't think that's going to get tolerated, because I know there's other ET races and beings that are a lot more advanced than the reptilians or or the grays or whatever. And so I think one way or another, we're gonna come into power, and we're gonna come into a greater understanding of what it means to be alive, to be real. Most of us have never experienced true health. You know, we've been fed so much garbage in our food, our water, our air. We don't even know what it's like to really be alive. So I think we've got a lot to look forward to. And Dan, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. I can't wait to have you back, because we barely scratched the surface. And I know the information that you're sharing is super important. I know people are hungry to hear it. And so why not, present it to them? And I really recommend all of our viewers out there, to check out Dan's website. All of his website, his YouTube, his socials are all going to be in the description box, right underneath the description below this published podcast. And so I want to thank you so much for joining us. And like I said, can't wait to have you back. And I hope everything works out really well for you. Hope you stay well. Carry on, you're doing a great job, and can't wait to see you when you come back.
It's been my pleasure, Karen. And everyone research, and don't give your power away to something outside. The power is within you, and that love is the only power, actually. And and so I believe it will overcome.
I agree. So we'll see you all next week. And thank you again, Dan. Take care, and bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to Karen's YouTube channel, click the like button, and share this show with your friends. Check out Karen's website at KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. All the links are available in the description box below. Until the next time, keep up the good work.
Endlessness puts all my inner strife to rest, for time gives birth to hurriedness. It all makes sense, well, more or less, and the sages put me to their test. With heart and soul I do my best to find the answers to my quest. I wonder, and I must confess, I don't know where it comes from, but I know it's okay. If this is all an illusion, then I'm willing to play. It's okay.